Welcome fans of the unknown and unexplained to Midnight Mysteries, a show where we dive into the depth of Wisconsin's supernatural lore and supposed haunted locations. I'm your host, Allie Shields, and let's jump right in and learn a little bit about the Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee.
The Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee investigate all over the country, including places like the Brumner Mansion, where we happen to be at today.
PIM is an acronym for Paranormal Investigators of Milwaukee. We are an investigating team of the paranormal. We have been around since 2005, investigating claims of the paranormal and trying to find a natural explanation for most claims that we can find and verify.
Paranormal investigations aren't as glamorous as they are portrayed on TV.
I think what's really unique about being a paranormal investigator is that no two investigations are alike. Whether or not you investigate the same place multiple times or you go to a new place every time, nothing is repetitive. There's always the rush, the excitement. That's not to say that it's easy. It comes with a lot of work. It's not nearly as fancy or as sexy as people would see on something, say, on TV. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's always worth it. Not just the excitement that comes from chasing that unknown, but also working with a great team.
It may seem like all fun and games in the field, but a lot of research takes place before they investigate and take a case.
There's a lot of human psychology to the paranormal, and being able to try and parse that and really get through to people, because people are scared. It's real to them, and so it's not about like saying, "Oh, don't worry about that. It's obviously just something that's normal." It's really making sure that they feel that they're heard, like that we're taking them seriously. We don't think that they're making it up. But we think that after doing this for so long, there's a lot of normal explanations that might be able to explain what has been going on. And so can we go through those steps first before we're going right to, it's a ghost? So we spend a lot of time doing that, and doing it in what we feel to be in a sensitive manner, so that people aren't feeling, again, that we're calling them either liars or they're crazy or that they're stupid. It's none of that stuff. It's really just, you don't know what you don't know. And we've learned a lot over the years of doing paranormal investigations about what can make certain things sound really creepy, really weird, or look very strange. And it's only through that experience that we can go through the steps necessary to really determine, what is going on in the location.
Without the resources and gear used during these cases, PIM wouldn't be able to dissect what is going on at their locations. They use their gear when solving these investigations to create closure for not only the spirits, but the living as well.
In my opinion, my personal favorite piece of gear would be the recorders. PIM is truly dedicated to the scientific process when it comes to investigations. We use uniform equipment, which means all of our recorders are the exact same. And we do that so that we're consistent in what we're capturing. There's been proven records of various recorders that are inconsistent, that can pick up anything, including AM, FM radio vibes. And so for me, the recorder is so unique because not only do we place them throughout a location, but we have a control recorder. So we each wear a control recorder on a vest. And the reason for that is if I hear something in another room and we capture it on the audio there, am I capturing it on my control? And what it does is it goes to the idea of if I'm capturing it in multiple places, did we all capture evidence, or is it something where we can say, no, that was a bird flying through or a bat? And so for me, the audio, re-listening to it, the asking of questions, the potential noises, even knocks, things like that, that you may hear at the time. It's really like reliving an investigation every time.
Not every unexplained encounter is a paranormal experience, and it's not as easy as TV makes it look to explain away.
I mean, the biggest thing I want people to understand about what we do versus what they see on TV is it's completely different. It's not as exciting as one might think. There is a lot of work that is involved with what we do, but the best part of what we do is we do it with a scientific mind, trying to find an answer. And even though we may not have an answer, doesn't mean there's not a natural explanation out there.
They may not always find an answer, but that could be because something or someone might not want to be questioned.
Who knew there was so much involved within the realm of this subject? And speaking of paranormal gear, with me today from PIM is Noah and Gravy to further educate us about the use of this gear for supernatural hunts. Thank you guys for joining me. Can you tell me a little bit about the gear that you brought with you today?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
Just first off, as you just saw, we are a scientific group, and so we go about our investigations using science as much as we can. And as part of that, we have a lot of scientific equipment. And the first thing I want to say about that is that none of it's designed to detect ghosts. And the main reason for that is we don't really have a good definition of what ghosts are. So our equipment's designed to detect things like environmental readings or vibration and things like that.
Okay.
And so let's go forward and start with our first piece. I think it's the EDI Plus is what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the EDI Plus. This device is, it's a multi-use device, multi-purpose. It has many functions to it, which is why we like it and which is why we use it. Couple of things that it does temperature readings, barometric pressure, and humidity. It also has an EMF detector on it that has lights that light up like you see in the shows. And then it also has a vibration sensor, so it picks up seismic vibrations, as you can see, based on the intensity of the vibration. What's important to understand about this device and why we like it so much is that it data logs all of those environmental changes.
Oh, cool.
If we have something happen on a location, we catch it audio or we catch video of it, we can go back to this device, pull out the SD card, throw it in a computer, graph it, and see if there's a correlation to that event to any of the changes that happened.
Okay.
And so we have multiple of these that we put out through every room that we possibly can, wherever the hotspots are, to see if we can capture any of that change in the environment, to see if we can correlate it to something paranormal or natural.
Wow.
And the data logging aspect is so important because when you're in the middle of an investigation, a lot of times anything that might be termed paranormal is very quick.
Right.
And so to be at the ready with your meters to be able to get that reading and record it is almost impossible.
Right.
And so by having something that's constantly recording, it removes that as a possibility. We can focus on the event, try to get other things taken down, and we can go back to this later to see if there's any correlation that we can work with.
Okay, very cool.
So let's move on to our next piece. So this is the main piece of equipment here, actually. This is called a Faraday cage. This is something that we built. It's of our own design, and we designed it to work with the recorders that we use, which are Zoom H1 recorders.
Okay.
So this is a digital audio recorder that we use in our investigations when we do what we call EVP, or electronic voice phenomena sessions.
Okay.
And so in those sessions, you're essentially asking questions and then seeing if you're leaving spaces of silence to see if there might be a response.
Okay.
So one of the criticisms of doing this is that there's radio frequencies all around us all the time.
Right.
And these are very sensitive microphones, and so maybe those could be picking those up, you know, in certain situations. And so by putting them inside a Faraday cage, which is specifically designed to block certain electromagnetic fields or frequencies, in this instance for FM and AM radio, we can actually ensure that if we do capture something anomalous on our investigations via this recorder, that it wasn't from some sort of radio frequency.
Right. Very cool.
And it's really critical because about 95% of evidence that is captured on investigation is audible in nature. So we take great care to ensure that we're not contaminating our own investigation and that any evidence we get is as closely controlled as possible.
Very cool. Wow.
We have our next piece here, I think.
Next up is what we call the touch flashlight. If you ever watch any of the TV shows that are out there, they take a flashlight and they manipulate it in such a way that the contacts are barely touching each other. And what they'll do is they'll ask questions, and then the light will seemingly turn on its own or turn off by itself.
Right.
And they're usually in the same amount of interval time periods between when that happens. Essentially what they're doing is they're breaking the flashlight in a way that it's not meant to function.
Okay.
And then they're getting super excited over the activity because they asked a question and it happens to turn on.
Right.
To counteract that problem, what we've done is we have a flashlight that we call the touch flashlight, and basically it has two metal strips that are contacts that once that circuit is closed by human touch, the light will turn on.
Look at that, yep.
And so that, what we'll do is we'll just put it out at a location, set it on a table, ask questions, and if that happens to turn on its own, we know exactly how it turned on. It turned on because the circuit was closed.
Okay. Very cool.
Which is very different when they're saying like, turn it on, turn it off.
Right.
And, I mean, a bug could technically, you know, if it crawled across the circuit, could cause it to go off. But in all the years that we've been using it, we've never had it go off by itself.
Okay.
But the point is that this is a more scientific way of doing that same method because we know exactly what's happening when that light is turning on.
Okay, absolutely.
All right, so we have one more piece of gear that we wanted to talk about here. So this is an actual multi-gear device similar to the EDI Plus. It's called a MEL meter. So it has built into it an electromagnetic field detector like before, but it also has a few other interesting additional things that it can do.
Okay.
So one is this antenna, which emits an EMF field. So there's a theory in the field that whatever paranormal is can emit its own EMF.
Okay.
And so another theory is that it can manipulate that EMF in order to manifest, if you will, or do something.
Okay.
So by making a small, very localized EMF field around this antenna, we can then say, okay, can you go by it and can you make it go off? So if you get close to it, you start hearing that noise and the light turns on and off. And then if you get closer, then you get the noise changes and more lights turn on.
Okay.
So we will set this out and we'll say, okay, you know, can you go over by this? Can you make it go off just like this? But there's things that you have to know about the equipment, and that's part of, you know, using the science in our investigation. Everything has its limitations.
Right.
And so something that can set this off that's normal are things like cell phones or things like a Wi-Fi router or even two-way radios, which are very commonly used on investigations. And so you could be sitting nothing anywhere near this, and someone talks on the radio, and that thing will just
go off
as high as it can go. So it's really something that you have to be aware of when you're using this type of equipment. And then the last bit I want to talk about is this also has something called a shadow detector on it. So shadow people is something that it's commonly referred to or claimed to be seen in locations. And this doesn't really detect the people per se, but it's essentially an absence of light.
Okay.
And so on this device right here, it has an electronic eye, and it's basically similar to any other sensor that will, like at dusk when a light will come on when it gets too dark outside.
Right.
So when you get to a certain level, so it's just measuring how many photons of light are coming in.
Okay.
So you set this device up with a light source on the other side of it across a hallway or a room, and if something breaks that light source, it'll reduce the amount of light going into the device, and then it'll alarm. And so that's kind of how that's used.
Gotcha.
So it's a good way to monitor a location and be able to figure out, if there's claims of shadow people, do we have actual evidence of that?
Right.
And we use this in conjunction with a camera so we can see if it does go off, if there was something that caused it to go off.
If there was. Okay.
And this is really just a small sampling of the equipment we do have. I mean, we use things like carbon monoxide detectors, we have decibel readers, we use a lot of video cameras, a lot of audio, and it's just important to understand that most of it is for just data logging the environment like you mentioned earlier.
Right, right.
And then the audio and video is there to capture the evidence if something were to happen.
Okay.
So if someone says they have a ghost detector, they don't really know what they have.
Gotcha. Wow. And that is a lot more complex than I realized. Thank you guys for sharing your knowledge on the subject and the process of an investigation. Make sure to hang around as our next stories will be sure to send a chill down your spine. Marcus Gallioni shares his stories of eerie encounters, and student producer Nalicia Lorenzana takes us to some ghostly locations. So hang on tight, because you're in for a fright.
Paranormal encounters are widely spread throughout the world, and even throughout Wisconsin.
One of my first experiences with the paranormal dates all the way back to when I was a kid. I remember waking up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I looked in the hallway, and I just remember seeing someone standing there, and they were kind of illuminated by the light of the street lights that were behind my house. And kind of from where my bedroom was, the living room was directly behind it, and I just remember seeing this being like illuminated, and it said something to me that to this day, I have no idea what it was. It almost sounded like it was from another language or maybe even another world. I couldn't even tell you, but just like that, I was out again, and I remember waking up in the morning thinking it was even a dream. I couldn't tell you what it was.
These experiences curate curiosity that causes interest in many different styles among the supernatural or even the spiritual aspects in general.
I like to say that my personal paranormal experiences have really piqued my interest in the paranormal, because there's some things that I personally can't understand or really comprehend without kind of looking into it. There's all sorts of different paranormal beings that kind of fit the criteria or the description of some of my own experiences, and it kind of puts me in a rabbit hole almost. All sorts of information from all different sources, some of them valid, some of them not so valid, but it's really interesting to kind of read about, and you actually learn a lot about what we do know and a lot about what we might not know.
Wisconsin has many alleged mysterious creature sightings. There are said to be 7 cryptoids that supposedly populate the Midwestern U.S.
One of my favorite cryptids to look into and read about is the Wendigo. It's a very popular and widely known cryptid across the internet, and has been within mythology for hundreds of years in all sorts of different literature, or writings, really anything like that. In short, it's essentially a creature that lurks in the woods and hunts down people and creatures in all sorts of different ways. For instance, if you can hear its kind of scream or its howl or whatever kind of sound it makes from really far away, it's actually really close and you're in danger if you can hear it. But if you can hear it kind of close, then it's actually really far away. And I find that to be really interesting and a consistent trope that's in all sorts of different people's stories and firsthand experiences, whether they may be true or not. It's a consistent aspect of it that kind of leaves it open to interpretation, and I think that's really enjoyable to kind of look at and study.
Marcus had a specific encounter with a ghost-like figure at an abandoned mall. While investigating the area, he was followed by an eerie sound with no presence. He believes this wasn't the last dealing with this particular spirit.
So after whatever that was that took place at the abandoned mall happened, a good few days later, I started to believe that whatever this thing was that was on the stairs followed me home. I got up at maybe 2 in the morning. I was craving iced tea like crazy, so I opened my fridge. My parents are asleep, and I open the door. Obviously, I'm grabbing my stuff, and I hear on the other side of the door my mom or a woman talk to me and say, "What are you doing?" Now, it just sounded like a woman. It didn't sound like, you know, in your horror movies, you know, ooh, spooky ghost voice. It didn't sound anything like that. It just sounded like a person, a woman saying, "What are you doing?" So I figured it's my mom, obviously. And I say, "Oh, I'm just thirsty. I'm just grabbing something to drink." And there's nothing. So then I close the door. There's nobody there. So I'm thinking, well, maybe, I don't know, she stopped by while I was putting whatever tea back into the fridge. She went back to bed, whatever. Well, as I'm walking back to my room, I can hear my mom snoring in her bedroom down the hall. I have no idea what it could have been. After then, stuff started to slow down, but my interest was so piqued, I couldn't help but looking more into it.
Wisconsin not only has its fair share of paranormal witnesses, but many allegedly haunted locations throughout the state as well. We explored the Bloody Bridge, Black Bridge, and the Red Bridge, all located in central Wisconsin.
Wisconsin not only has its fair share of paranormal witnesses, but allegedly haunted locations as well. We explored the Bloody Bridge, the Black Bridge, and the Red Bridge, all located in central Wisconsin.
It began on the Bloody Bridge on Highway 66, where a young woman perished on her wedding night. The first encounter with the ghostly woman was a police officer who thought he hit her, pulled over to investigate, only to find nobody and return to his vehicle. Once back to his vehicle, he locked eyes with the bloody bride.
Now, ever since this encounter, it's said that the bride haunts all 3 locations, especially at night or even during the winter months. It's also said that if you go on the Red Bridge at night and turn your headlights off,
you may just see the ghost of a woman appear. The bridges are all popular fishing spots, so fishermen on the waters LEIGH often have experiences with the bride. Visiting this location during the day will be encounter-free. However, when visiting, make sure to be respectful as a lot of the surrounding land is private property.
How spooky! Wisconsin is more mysterious than one may have thought. Thank you for sharing about those strange accounts and ghoulish sights. Now, we're almost to the end of today's show, but first, let's hear Pim's thoughts about the ghostly encounters and locations close to home. So what other haunted locations has Pim visited?
Well, locally, we have investigated places such as the Milwaukee Public Museum,
Okay.
Milwaukee Public Library, the central location, and one of our favorites, the Riverside Theater. Couple of claims there were lights being turned on after people thought they have turned them off, and also a shadow figure being seen on the 4th floor leaving the men's bathroom.
Oh.
Now, when we were there investigating, we had a couple incidents happen where we did see a light up in the light booth, and we also captured an audio recording voice of a man's voice coming from the theater while we were on the 3rd floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we go across the country, and so one of the probably most interesting ones that we've done is at Bobby Mackey's Music World, which is located in Wilder, Kentucky.
Okay.
And so we were doing an investigation there, and we do, when we're doing that investigation, we do like a walkthrough first. And so we basically see the space because we've never been there before.
Right.
And there was a tour guide kind of showing like, here's where this happens, here that happens. And so we were listening to that. And one of our female investigators was standing, and all of a sudden she just like fell backwards.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, what's going on? Like I was concerned that she tripped or something. And so I went up to her and I helped her up, and she had this shocked look on her face. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, did you hurt yourself? And she was like, no, I felt like someone took like 2 hands and just pushed me right in the middle of the chest.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, okay, well, are you okay? You know, are everything's all right?
Yeah.
And so after that, we were on high alert. We're like, okay, well, there's definitely something going on here. Like someone just got pushed down by something we couldn't see.
Something's going on.
So we got all geared up, and we were doing the investigation, and we were in another room short way from where she had gotten pushed initially. And we were all standing up doing an EVP session, and all of a sudden, we hear this like shuffling noise, and she was standing right next to me. I was standing next to her when this happened, and she all of a sudden had gotten pushed backwards again, and she was close enough to a wall that she was actually like holding herself up on the wall, but she again described the same thing, like something had just pushed her right in the middle of the chest while she was standing there.
Oh, geez.
So this is definitely a rarity, not something that happens a lot when we're doing these types of investigations.
Right.
And we always, you know, from a scientific perspective, we went back. We tried to replicate what we were doing, the things we had, the process that we used to see if we could get the same sort of activity to happen again, or even anything similar.
Right.
Unfortunately, it didn't repeat.
Did it? Okay.
So it's one of the more interesting ones that we've had.
And I'll tell you, every time we returned, my back was against the wall the whole time.
Right, just in case.
It was hard to get around.
And how do you choose the locations that you visit?
A lot of the places that we choose are either people contacting us saying they have something going on, they want us to come in and try to find out an explanation for it and help ease their mind. And it could be anywhere from businesses to homes. Homes usually take a priority because if there's children involved, we want to make sure we get there first.
Right, right.
And they'll contact us, we'll go through there, we'll listen to their claims, and we'll try to see if we can come up with explanations over the phone and help them that way.
Right.
Otherwise, if we can't, we'll come in and do an investigation and also do like a walkthrough as well there.
Okay. Okay. And what are some of the more scarier encounters that you two have personally experienced?
Well, we ask this question a lot.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'll tell the story that we always tell. So we were investigating a place in Berlin, Wisconsin. It's an old soda factory. And there were claims there of, shadow figures, the usual sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we had never been there before. And so there was a first floor that kind of had the main bottling place. And then on the second floor was kind of like an attic type area.
Okay.
And so we were going up the stairs, myself, Gravy, and one other investigator, and I was in the lead. And so it's kind of, you go up the stairs and then you have to go around to either left, you have to go around to the left basically.
Okay.
And so I came around, I went around the banister, and all of a sudden I heard this growling noise. And I was like, ooh, growling, what's that about? And I turned my flashlight on and I see 2 raccoons. And they growl and then they start running at me. And I'm like, back up. Because, when it comes to investigations, we're not usually worried about the paranormal, but rabies is forever. And so it's something that we always have to be concerned about.
Absolutely.
So that's, when it comes to our investigations, we're not worried about that paranormal event, something happening to us, we've never had anything follow us home, even though we've invited multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
We get a little bit insulted now at this point, but it's really the living, the animals that we might come across, and maybe the people. We're in abandoned locations, and they're supposedly abandoned, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
And so you never know what you're going to run into. So it's always safety first in that regard.
Absolutely.
And just trying to document the rest that we can that else might be there.
And you'll be surprised how many claims are based around infestations. What people don't realize is like why their cat or dog is always barking or staring at the same corner. It's probably because they have a squirrel living up there, or raccoons. And people oftentimes get scared by that. Like, what are they looking at? Well, they have really good hearing, better than humans, and they can sense that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you, Pim, for being here with us today. It does look like we're out of time.
Well, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for joining us today on Midnight Mysteries, the show where we explore the otherworldly. I've had the pleasure of being your host for today's episode. I'm Allie Shields, and I'll see you next time. Thank you guys for coming again.